So hello and welcome to this little procedure on how to troubleshoot your Hayward Aqua Rite, Aqua Trol, Swin Pure, or any machine that looks like this one on the Hayward side or on the Jacuzzi, Clear, and Carvin. So the first part will be showing you how to note all the troubleshooting steps to gather some values that will help us determine the problem on your system. So that's the first part. Then after that, we're going to see how to know if a cell is defective or if it's another issue, or if we need to reset the salt average displayed. And on the last part of this video, you'll see the different explanation of the values that are shown on the system. It's a more advanced part. It's important to take note that we only repair the control box. So we're not able to repair the cell, we're not selling any cells. So if by doing this procedure you see that the cell is defective, you're better to contact a pool store to get a replacement cell, as we cannot help you. So we'll start by doing the first part of the procedure, which is how to gather all the troubleshooting values that are needed for us to help you. It's important to take note before we do the procedure. Don't press the diagnostic button before we will tell you, so that will be easier. When you start the procedure, you have about 1 minute to complete it. If not, the system will stop generating if it's in error. So it's important to note all the values that you're seeing. Even if they're changing, just take note of the first value and then go to the next value. So to start, you just need to make sure also that for sure the pump is running. There's flow in the cell, so that your no flow light is not on or not flashing. It needs to be steady off, because if not, the system is just not going to generate. So here we see we have an error on the system. The average values is 1000 ppm, which is below the minimum that we need. And here we see that the check salt and the inspect cell are on, which means that the system is not generating. So to make it generate, we slide it to off. The lights are off now. We slide it back to auto. We wait until we hear the click, which will be in a few seconds. So now we heard the click. We press diagnostic, take note of the first value, and then we continue and we go on with each value. We need to make sure that we complete this before the lights for check salt and inspect cell are on. So we take note of each values, and please send us the value not in a video, but just send us the value as text, because video is very hard and picture also. So we only accept text value, and with that we will be able to tell you if the problem is with the cell or if it's with the system. It's also possible that you see less values when you press the button, because we have the most recent system. So the older system might have less value, and the Aqua Trol system will have also less value. If the system B is in error, you see here, before you completed the procedure, what we suggest you is you go back to the first value here by pressing a few times diagnostic, slide to off, put it back to auto, and then restart the procedure again. Now we're going to do the second part, and this part is to help you know if the problem is with your cell or if it's something else, or if the average values must be reset. To do this procedure, you need to have tested your water by a pool store, so you need to know what is your salt level in the water. That value must be within the applicable values. So for a regular system, it's between 2700 and 3500 ppms, and with a low salt it will accept from 1200 ppms, and it will go to up to 3500 ppms. Yes, something else is written on the box, but in the fact it works up to 3000 ppms too. So now here we're trying to simulate first a cell that is in end of life. So you see two lights are on because we let it run. So we start again the procedure. Set to auto, lights are off, set back to auto, sorry, off to, and then auto. And then we wait until we hear the click. We see it clicks, and we want to press diagnostic until a few times until you get the minus value. So this is your instant cell, the salt level measured by the system. So you see here we have 1000 ppm, and we said that we're simulating 3200 ppms. So what does it mean? That means that your cell is almost gone and must be replaced. There's one little thing you can still check. If you press diagnostic, you might have that option here starting with T. This shows T15. You need to be sure that if you have this value, it matches your cell type. So if you have a T3 or T9, you always need to have the T value, because if you don't have this value, your system can be only compatible sometimes with a T5 or a T15. So it's important. So on above ground pool, it supports only T5. So if you bought a T3 by accident or something else like a T9, then we can do a card swap. So replace your above ground card by an regular Aqua Rite card that will support those cells. So now we're going to do again the test. So I put it to off. This time on my simulator, I'm going to simulate a cell that is working. So I have a bad value here, which can be due to the fact that you started the system at the beginning of the season when there was not enough salt or something like that, or the other thing that can happen, you might have reset it to 0 by accident. So I will press the diagnostic button, and here you see I see minus 3400. This value can fluctuate a bit within the first 15-30 seconds. It's okay, as long as you then get the proper value. So what I do as I'm auto, I'm going to do superchlorinate and auto. If I press diagnostic until I go back to the first value without a minus, you see now I've reset that value to a value that is within the range. So that's another thing that is interesting. I'm going just to show you another little test here. You see I am at -0. If I do superchlorinate by accident and put it back to auto, the first value will be set to 0, which means that the system will go into the error mode. So that's something else that could have happened. So if you see -0, it's not because the cell is necessarily totally dead. It's sometime by accident you hit the superchlorinate button while the system was not generating. So I do the same thing again. I set it to off auto, press diagnostic again, see -3000, and I do that. And then it's reset to its good value. So now one little other information about the flow light. This light must always be off. If it's on, the system won't generate. If it's flashing, it won't generate. On an above ground pool, the only time that the system light no flow will be flashing is when you power on the system for the first 30 seconds. After that, it's just going to go to off. Now, if I disconnect the flow sensor on an Aqua Rite system, which is connecting here in the like telephone jack, then I will see that the no flow is now steady on. So what I'm going to do now, I'm just going to do a simulation. If I want to know if it's the flow sensor that is defective. So let's say you have your flow sensor connected here, the pump is running, but you still have the no flow light. The problem can be from the card in the system, or it can be the flow sensor. So what I'll do is I'll use a little screwdriver, a flathead screwdriver, and I'm going to insert it very gently in the flow sensor jack, and you will see the light will start to flash. It's normal because it flashes for 30 seconds and then it's going off. But if I move a bit the screwdriver, sometimes it's on and off, but at least I know that the card is good. So I'm just going to remove it. It's not dangerous, it's 5 volts only, just to know, for you to know. And then you know that the card is good. So then you'll reinsert the flow sensor connector, and then you'll see if it's still on or if it's flashing. If it's flashing, good news, everything is good. If it's still on, then you need to troubleshoot the flow sensor. Please note, we don't sell that part, the flow sensor. We don't have it, and we cannot help you if the problem is with the flow sensor. But if the problem is on the machine, we can repair it. So now let's start with the more advanced troubleshooting and more advanced information. So the first thing, when you have your system and you didn't touch anything, you have the salt value. This is a 24-hour average value. So if you do changes to your water, for example, if you add salt or you remove water and then you add back water to lower your salt level, this value will not match the current salt level. So that's totally normal. So if I press the diagnostic button when it's generating, you can go to the minus value and I can see the value is different because now I'm simulating a different salt level. So if you did any changes to your water, then please go to this value to see exactly what is your salt level. That's the best indication. Other important thing, again, on this value, when you have a regular system, it's 2,700 to 3,500. A low salt works between 1,200 to 3,500. Yeah, on the system, you will see that it goes from 1,200 to 1,800 for the low salt, but in fact, it can go up to 3,500 because low salt system, they're using the same board, same system, and same cell. Everything is the same, just the threshold, the minimum value as going down. So the good thing to do if you want your system to be more efficient, because the content of salt in the water changes the conductivity, so it changes the efficiency of the system. So if you're using your system, your low salt system at 1,700 and you decide to go with a regular salt level, so you add salt and you're now at 3,400, so double, then your percentage, if it was at 40%, you'll have to set it to 20 because the system will produce twice the chlorine in the same time. So you need to lower it. And the good news is it's going to be more efficient. So that's one little trick that you can do to improve how the system works. Now the percentage button, how does it work? This is controlling, when set to auto, the quantity of chlorine you're adding every day by controlling the number of hours the system works. So it's like if you decide you have a system that you put chlorine every day, okay, for example, and you say, okay, for my pool I need 1 cup of chlorine every day, then every morning you put 1 cup, but this system is a bit the same thing. So if you set it to 20%, it will work 20% of the time, so it will be always generating the same amount of chlorine. It's not automatic. The system doesn't know how much chlorine you need. You need to tell it how much chlorine you need. How it works, if you set this to 50%, on the older system, it means that the system will work 1 hour and a half and then it will pause for an hour and a half. So that's normal. Then when you go to diagnostic, now we're generating, but if the light will be on and you see -0, that means your system is in pause. It is totally normal, there's no fault, and that's good. And on the more, another example, let's say, for example, if you set it to 25% and you have an old system, it will work half an hour, then it will pause for an hour and a half. On the newer system, it will work 45 minutes, and then it will pause for the rest of the 3-hour cycle. So that's totally normal. So important, again, the minus value can be 0 sometime, even if generating is on. It's just because that the system is in pause. When you want to troubleshoot also, let's say, for example, if it was showing -0, now I just put it to off, but it was showing -0, and you want to troubleshoot, the only way to make it do another cycle is you set it to off and you set it to auto. So then the system will start again a new cycle, and you'll be able to take note of the different value. I'll go back to my salt average. If I press 1 time, here you see it's the temperature, and now it's in Fahrenheit. If I set to superchlorinate and auto, it switches from Fahrenheit to Celsius. So now if I show it in Celsius, that will impact your different values. If I go back to the first value, that's the salt content. So instead of showing it in ppm, it's showing it in gram per liter. So just decimal that change. So if you see this number and you're not used to it, press 1 time and change it back to Fahrenheit. That's the value that most people are used to. So now if we just go back to the average values, what are the different values showing? Now, the first value is the temperature of the water going through the cell. Then here we see the voltage. Then it's the amps. Then this value shows the value of the button here. The button is not perfectly precise. So if you want to be sure of the value you're selecting, you're better to press diagnostic until you see the value ending with P, and you set it accordingly. That way you're exactly where you want to be. If I press again, I explained before, this is the real-time salt level that is measured. So again, if it's -0, the system is in pause, set it to off auto and it will start again. If it's starting and it's still showing -0, check if your cell is connected, or maybe your cell is bad. If I press again, I have AL-0 because it's an Aqua Rite. On an Aqua Trol, it will show AL-7, but I can change this value on an Aqua Rite. You cannot do it on the Aqua Trol. And this value is not very relevant because it's used only if a system is controlling this box. So it has nothing to do with the cell type or anything else. If I press again, you have the firmware or an hardware value. So you see this is the 1.59 card. If I press again, you will see a T minus something. That will be only on Aqua Rite system, because Aqua Trol are only compatible with T5. So if you have an Aqua Trol and you have something else in a T5, it will not be able to read the proper salt level, so you need to replace your card. So you can contact us and we can sell you a replacement card to go to an Aqua Rite. If I do superchlorinate and auto, you see I can cycle between the different cell type. So I press again, it timed out. So I'm able to cycle between the different cell type. So it's important that the cell type selected here matches your cell. On an Aqua Rite, if you don't see this value, this means you have an older system, so your system will be probably only compatible with a T5 or a T15, but to set it, there's a jumper under the display board that you can put or remove. So the jumper is there, it's for T15, if it's not there, it's a T5. If you bought a T3 or T9, in that case, you need again also to replace the board. So thank you.